Hey, it's the Fact Freak, and today we're going to talk about the bus stop killer. Of course, the bus stop killer is called Levi Bellfield, and he is an English serial killer and sex offender, rapist, kidnapper, and burglar. He was found guilty on the 25th of February 2008 of the murders of 2 women and the attempted murder of another, and he was sentenced to life imprisonment. We are now going to break down that case and have a look at who the bus stop killer really was. Now, Levi was raised on a council estate with his brother and sister and became known to the police at the age of just 13. There was also claims that his mother would allow him to sleep in bed with her until the age of 13, as well as wiping his arse for him. These claims were made by his ex-partner in a Sun news article just ahead of a documentary that was to be aired about Levi. She then went on to talk about her own relationship with Levi, saying that he would beat her while heavily pregnant and rape her. But we will talk more about her later on. Throughout his teenage years, he engaged in petty crimes such as burglary, car theft, but in 1990 he was charged with assaulting a police officer. By the time of his first murder in 2002, he had already spent nearly a year in prison and was known for being a controlling, manipulative and abusive partner.
So you started a relationship.
Yeah.
What was he like?
To start off with, he was an absolute angel. You couldn't have asked for a nicer person. You know, always bought you flowers, always, really nice, took you to nice places.
He had a bit of a reputation, though, as a bad boy.
Oh, yeah.
And a womaniser, didn't he?
Big time.
Did he worked at a nightclub, didn't he? Yes.
But yeah, he was a doorman.
Now, of course, that was Joe Collins, who we mentioned earlier, Levi's partner. Now, Joe has 2 children with Levi and claims that she was beaten to a pulp by the sick killer for years, but that he wasn't the perfect son to his mother. She claimed that Levi's mother was like the female version of him, and it was bizarre how close they were. You could get that feeling that no matter what he did, he was never in the wrong. He could never do anything wrong in Mum's eyes. She even claims that his mother, who died at 81 with a lung condition, was the reason that Levi only murdered blondes. His mum was the reason he never killed brunette. Her hair was so black it was blue. He only hated blondes because they were the opposite of his mother, Joe claimed. She blasted Levi by saying, "I don't like it when people call him an animal. Animals kill for survival and they don't rape," she said. Now let me introduce you to Levi Bellfield's unfortunate victims. The first girl pictured here was Millie Dowler, a schoolgirl, and she was reported missing by her parents when she failed to return home after leaving Walton-on-Thames railway station in Surrey on the 21st of March 2002. Now, she had phoned her father just minutes before leaving the station, informing him that she would be home in half an hour. However, she did not return, and the search for a killer was one of the biggest manhunts in British history. Several rewards were offered for information over her disappearance. Even an offer of £100,000 was offered by national tabloid newspaper The Sun, and her parents continuing to send messages to her mobile telephone in hope of a reply. This is Marsha Louise MacDonald, Bellfield's second victim, a 19-year-old who was found alive near her home in Hampton in February 2003, having been struck over the head with a hammer. Marsha had been attacked after getting off the 111 bus from Kingston upon Thames and died 2 days later in hospital. She had been on her way home from a night out in nearby Kingston when she was found just after midnight in the quiet residential road. A neighbour was woken by loud noises outside and found her still conscious but suffering from her injuries. The teenager's father, Phil, said that her brother, 5-year-old Jack, was going to be devastated when they told him of his sister's death. Now it's time for me to introduce you to Amélie de Lagrange. She was a 22-year-old French student who was living in the UK. Her body was found on August 19th, 2004, after she'd been struck over the head with a hammer, just like Marsha McDonnell. Her parents went on to say that her loss is an open wound that will never heal. We shall never get over it, they said. Now that brings us round to DCI Colin Sutton, and he was dubbed as the real manhunter. He was a Met detective who led the case in Amelia's murder. They had little to go on, but found that a mobile phone, stolen in the deadly attack, was used in Walton-on-Thames, where Millie had been abducted and murdered in March 2002. Also, following an intense search through CCTV footage, officers spotted a white Ford van present near the scene of Amelia's murder. It was the same van spotted in Walton-on-Thames following the murder of Millie. Now, DCI Sutton said once he'd seen the van, he would pursue it with everything he could throw at it. This meant that the van was identified as a Ford manufactured between 1996 and 2000. There were 25,000 in the UK, and he wanted to look at every single one. Now, as the police appealed for information, Bellfield's ex-girlfriend, Collins, who we spoke about earlier, thought he could have been responsible for Amelia's death. Sutton said he believed that was her chance for her to break free from this horrible relationship that she was in. She also recounted how Bellfield acted suspiciously on the night Millie vanished. She also placed him at the same area where Amelia was killed. It was then discovered that he had once owned a white Ford van, and it was not long before he was linked to Kate Sheedy's attack. This gave the police enough to put Bellfield under police observation, and within days was seen pulling over to talk to young girls at a bus stop. The police then arrested him. Now, officers brought Bellfield to Heathrow police station, and while they were questioning him, Sutton was also questioning his ex-partner Emma Mills, the mother of 3 of his 11 children. Now, DCI Sutton did say, while having Bellfield in for an interview, he came across as very jokey, like he was your best mate. He was cunning, violent. He could switch from being nice to nasty instantly. We are now going to have a look at some of the interrogation footage of Levi Bellfield, and I will do my best to break it down. From the body language used by Levi Bellfield to the techniques used by the detectives in the room.
At the very beginning of the interview, do you remember that?
No comment.
That's exactly what you said. No comment. Found that very interesting, and I'll tell you for why.
Now, of course, in this excerpt of the interview footage that was released nationally, you will hear that Levi Bellfield is going down the no comment route. Of course, every person has the right to refuse to speak under interrogation. However, that does not mean that the police will stop questioning and putting on the pressure. The way this detective is speaking to Levi is all in a way undermining the man's intelligence to appeal to his ego.
Tell you for why. You didn't deny it.
No comment.
You didn't say, it's not me.
No comment.
And at no stage over the last 2 days have you denied any involvement in these offences.
No comment.
Why is that, Levi?
No comment.
Why haven't you sat there and said, jumped up and down and shouted from the rooftops, you've got the wrong person?
No comment.
I find that very strange.
Now, of course, through this interview, Bellfield reveals a number of signs showing deception, including the crossing and uncrossing of his legs.
Did you get a kick out of being involved in these sort of inquiries?
No comment.
Do you think it's a macho type of thing to do here?
No.
Do you think it will help your notoriety?
No comment.
Now, I particularly enjoy this bit because it looks like Levi has uncrossed his legs, feeling more comfortable, and then this male detective goes in at the guy about his masculinity, almost demasculating him and saying, "Do you think this makes you a big man, Levi?" Do you think this will help you with your notoriety? It is no surprise that he soon crosses his legs and goes back into that well-known guarded and deceptive position.
Do you honestly believe that your actions over the 21st and the 22nd of March 2002 are the actions of an innocent man?
No comment.
And are you an innocent man?
No comment.
Because if you are, tell us.
No comment.
And give us that explanation for where you were and what you were doing.
No comment.
Are you able to do that, Levi?
No comment.
Sarah's told you what she believes you did that particular day, and I wholly support what she says. I believe you took her off the street that day. I believe your motivation was sexual, and I believe you took her back to Collingwood Place, and I believe you killed her there. That's the truth, isn't it?
No comment, sir.
He denied the murder, and his partner moved out of the flat in Walton-on-Thames in Surrey within days of Millie disappearing in 2002. The court eventually heard that they had not been due to move out of Collingwood Place for 2 months under the tenancy agreement. The remains of the 13-year-old were found 6 months after she disappeared in the woods in Yateley Heath in Hampshire.
That's what happened. And then you've used the day of next year to move her body. Is that the truth?
No.
That's what's happened, isn't it?
No comment.
And then sometime over the following few days, you've driven down to Hampshire, an area that you know, and you've dumped her body.
No comment, sir.
That's the truth, isn't it?
No comment, sir.
Now, Bellfield was actually not charged with Millie's murder until 2010. He was convicted in June 2011 while serving a life sentence for other crimes. As it stands, Bellfield, 53, will never be released as he's serving a whole life sentence for murdering Millie Dowler, French student Amélie de Lagrange, and 19-year-old Marsha MacDonald in southwest London from 2002 to 2004. He was also charged and convicted over the attempted murder of Kate Sheedy, while the detective in charge of the investigation told Sky News later that year that he believed that Bellfield was behind dozens of other crimes. He will be forever known as one of the most dangerous serial killers in Britain. He is currently in jail for the murders, and at the time of his conviction in 2011, detectives said they believed that he may have been responsible for around 20 attacks on women which were never solved. So that's it for today, guys. That was our deep dive and case file into Levi Bellfield, the bus stop killer. Let me know in the comments who you'd like me to look at next. Peace.